creativity, imagination, and you spoke of using fairy tales in order to get kids' imagination going. So let's finish on that note.
Well, when I tell parents that Grimm's fairy tales are wonderful to share with their kids, they're like, oh my God, they're so awful and so gory. And the point about fairy tales is that and I'm talking about the original ones, Grimm's fairy tales, not the niced up ones.
Not the new Frozen.
Right. Well, those don't even qualify as fairy tales. They were created very mindfully and with a great deal of what I would call sort of esoteric knowledge to engage very deeply with the archetype of the psyche. And so they're full of symbols, numerical themes, repetitive rhythms, all of this that really have deep meaning for children.
Yeah.
So it's not so much that they are designed to ignite their imagination, but they will definitely engage it.
Yeah.
Absolutely get a book that does not have illustrations. You were talking about...
I know. I was there sharing with Marcy yesterday. I have to come to like, my mother bought me this fairy tale book with the Grimm fairy tales, and the pictures were so horrible and so scary that she had to staple some of the pages together because I was scared reading my fairy tales as a little kid.
Yeah. Here's the interesting thing. A child, even if the fairy tale, which they do, includes a brutal scene, a child will never out of his or her own imagination create something that is too harsh or too intolerable for them. And the thing is, even the youngest child knows that there's dark and light in all of us. And so when we try to give them this Disneyfied version of life, that everything's good and there's a fairy behind every flower, they know that's not the case, and they actually know that they even have darkness within them. And so when we give them fairy tales, it can be very reassuring because it gives like a home for that aspect of them. They go like, oh, they can. It's basically acknowledging what they know to be true. And so, in general, the body of Grimm's, they're good for children 6 or 7 and up. But there's also a few that are really good for even 4-year-olds, and there's some that are seasonal. I have them, they're in the book. Some that actually I'll share the fall season, since it's the fall season. A great one for even the littlest child is The Three Little Pigs. That's a great fall season tale. And so, check that out. And the thing is, your child will come up with will have their favorites that they ask you to read over and over. My daughter liked me reading her Grimm's fairy tales till she was into her preteens.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really, that's one of those examples of things that you're not really going to hear anymore. One of the things, don't explain the meaning of the fairy tale. Because then that robs the child it robs them of that experience of bringing his or her own soul and imaginative powers to it. And don't explain it away with any neat explanations. No, there's no such thing as a beanstalk and a giant and a Rumpelstiltskin. No, you just let it sit with them.
Yeah. Did I tell you that I was born in the same city as the Brothers Grimm?
No.
Yes.
Well, I remember as a child going to a movie about the Brothers Grimm. I wish I could. I can still see some of the pictures in there. Yeah. What city was that?
It's called Hanau. It used to be a big military base, so sometimes Americans know about it. It's close to Frankfurt. And there's a statue on the marketplace that is still there. And the Brothers Grimm, one is standing above the other one who's sitting reading a book. And according to the story that goes around, they trade places every night at midnight.
Oh, have you noticed this?
I always kept checking as a little kid. I'm like, did they change? Who's sitting today? But so I grew up in a small town in Germany with all these Grimm fairy tales, and we had them on tape where people were reading them to us, kind of like Audible today.
Let me close my thought about the fairy tales with this idea that it is suggested, it is commonly understood that the deceptive power to mislead the soul's pure nature is always portrayed in fairy tales by a wolf.
Oh, interesting.
And so let us remember that in order to get to Little Red Riding Hood, the wolf first had to deceive the grandmother. So let us all remember our role as their shelterers, as their guides, to not let our souls be misled.
I love that. That's a beautiful. That's beautiful. See, I didn't know these things about the fairy tales, but I just loved them as a little girl.